Good morning, one and all. Welcome to South Church, Unitarian Universalist Church in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We are so glad that you are here this morning. It is always a pleasure to have you, whether it be your first or 100th time. We hope that you feel welcome and know that we're thinking of you, and that you can write notes in the chat line to let us know what's going on in your life. And if you need us, we're here for you. Worship at South Church is a team event, and I am always thrilled to work with worship associates. And this morning I have the pleasure of working with Bob Vaccaro, who's going to tell us about the rest of the service. Bob, good morning.
Thank you, Susan. So I'm one of 8 worship associates, gets a chance to be part of a service about once every 8 weeks. And today our story for all ages will be led by Jen Del Deo, our religious education coordinator. And I want to introduce you to Joanne Connolly, who's our director of music ministry, to say something about the music.
Thank you, Bob. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Deb. I'm so excited to see you from across the waves, across the pond, from one of my favorite places, Ireland. Wow. And not just a favorite place geographically, but a favorite place musically. So I was so excited to learn that Deb was going to be here and to be able to add Irish music, traditional Irish music. I invited Jonathan Booth and his daughter Emma Booth to play traditional Irish fiddle and guitar music. You'll hear one of my favorites, Star of County Down, of course, Farewell to Whiskey, and The Wind That Shakes the Barley. And I'm going to sing a favorite song of mine called The Western Shore that talks about many beautiful places in Ireland and also hints on a little bit of the troubles of Ireland. Talks about Galway and Dingle and other beautiful places. So I'm excited to join you this morning in music and with Deb. And now I'll pass it back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Joanne. Looking forward to the music. It's with great pleasure that I want now to introduce you to today's guest minister, another luminary in our extraordinary congregation. Many of us already know Deborah Mcdermott because she was a member of South Church for some 30 years. Though not a joiner, her words, Deborah made it a point to always participate on one committee or another during practically all those years. And her daughter Bridget came of age in South Church. We also know Deborah for her 18-year career as a reporter and editor for the Portsmouth Herald, where she wrote extensively about environmental and social justice issues. But last summer, Deborah packed up and moved to Ireland. Because her grandfather was born there, Deborah was able to become an Irish citizen and keep her US citizenship. Although most of her relatives are in Maine, Bridget has settled with her English fiance in Rwanda. And Ireland is closer to Rwanda than the seacoast, I hope. In Ireland, yes. Deborah chose to live in Corrigan, a tiny postcard village of 690 people in Catholic County Clare on the magical and ancient West Coast. She returned to the seacoast recently to get vaccinated, to visit family and friends, and lucky for us, to write and record a sermon. She is now back in Ireland. So Deborah, do you want to say something about today's sermon?
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all on this morning. And I take note of Joanne saying that her song is going to be about the west of Ireland. I'm happily here. I live in County Clare. Our claim to fame is the Cliffs of Moher, if anybody has been here. And my sermon is about some reflection of my time here. You'll hear a little bit about ancestors. You'll hear something about holy wells, and a little bit about just settling into this glorious and beautiful place.
Thank you. I look forward to that too. So I want to end by saying that our videographer is our office administrator, Jennifer Lydon, and our producer is Kirsten Hunter, our director of Lifespan Ministries. And welcome again. And now for announcements.
Have you been thinking about joining one of the associate programs, but still have questions or want to express your interest? Please join members of Shared Ministry at Coffee Hour today and next Sunday, April 25th, for a conversation and a time to answer any questions as we look to adding new members. The Zoom link for Social Hour can be found in your Sunday morning email and at the end of the worship service. The South Church Spiritual Book Group is hosting a discussion of The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates on Wednesday, May 12th at 7 p.m. All are welcome. Please contact South Church Book Group at gmail.com for the Zoom link. Spring has sprung and it's time to reconnect with your South Church friends. The Fellowship Associates are planning safe, small, outdoor gatherings from mid-May through June. We're looking for people to host 4 to 8 guests who will bring their own chair, food, drink, and wear a mask while not eating. Please send your name, address, and number of guests you're willing to host, as well as your requested date and time, to fellowship@southchurch-uu.org by April 22nd.
Oh, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pour wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If my true love she were gone, I would surely find no other to pour wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pour wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go?
Embracing this month's theme of becoming, and inspired by Kirsten's sermon last week about becoming in community, I am declaring to you that I am becoming a tender leafy greens eating fruitarian. This means I am aspiring to eat exclusively tender leafy greens, sweet fruits, and non-sweet fruits like tomatoes, avocados, cucumbers, and peppers. And this is why. A few months before the pandemic began, I was facing a second hip replacement, despite my high nutrient raw vegan diet and extensive yoga practice. Since it took me a year to recover from my first hip replacement, I was motivated to try a month-long water-only fast at a fasting center in Costa Rica, the month before the pandemic began. And this worked. My pain vanished, and I was inspired by the center director to try his fruitarian regimen. Thanks to the social isolation of the pandemic, I was able to give this diet a try for over a year now, free from the anxious view of family and friends, and free from my hosting needs and inevitable temptations. As a bonus, I am employing this month's theme of becoming to upgrade my 50-year conversation with myself about my food choices. In my 20s and 30s, I called myself an imperfect vegetarian. In my 40s and 50s, a cheating vegan. In my 60s, an easily lapsed raw vegan. And now in my 70s, I could easily call myself a faulty fruitarian. Though somewhat accurate, these descriptions keep me judging myself as a health failure rather than a health success. By simply changing the lens to one of becoming, I am revising my life story to say that I was becoming a vegetarian, becoming a raw vegan, and now becoming a fruitarian. This judgment-free lens allows me to be happier with myself, not only in the current adventure, but also with my view of myself over the last 50 years. It's a kinder, still accurate, and more fruitful, pun intended, story. So let it be. As Reverend Susan lights the chalice in our sanctuary, consider lighting a chalice or candle in your home or simply in your mind's eye. I invite you to use this time to reframe your life story through the lens of becoming. Can you see your life in a more positive light? Does a kinder story provide you more energy and momentum for your future? Also consider reflecting on who you have been becoming during this year-long pandemic. What is changing in you for the better? Better for your physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Better for your tribe, and better for our planet. Please join me in reciting our mission statement. The words are displayed on your screen. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. Did you know that our bodies are made up of teeny tiny building blocks called cells? We can't see them without using special magnifying tools, but each of our bodies is made up of trillions of these teeny cells that are a little bit like itty bitty Legos. And each of these cells doesn't last your whole life. Old cells die off as new ones replace them. Our bodies are always growing and changing, and all of our cells get replaced within every 7 to 10 years. I think that means that if you're older than 10, you probably didn't have any of your current living cells when you were born. You're still you, but you're also always becoming brand new. Really, you're always becoming more and more you. Well, my story today is about a girl who thought human cells were so fascinating that when she grew up, she traveled halfway around the world to study cell science. She studied and experimented, and she spent countless hours in a lab, and she learned an incredible amount about cells. She felt excited and alive studying something she loved. She could feel sparkles growing in her soul, and you could see those sparkles in her eyes. She was becoming more and more her real self. She was so busy with her studies that she wasn't able to visit her hometown for several years. Her work was fascinating, but it was also really demanding, often tiring, and sometimes even stressful. She grew to miss her family and her home more and more, and finally, one summer, she was able to take a break and go back there. On the long plane ride, she thought about all the little details she had been missing and how good it would feel to be back to all the old familiar comforts of home. When she closed her eyes, she could remember it all so well in perfect detail, just how it was when she'd left. And before she knew it, the plane was landing. She drove the roads to her family home, and she got a warm, fuzzy feeling from the familiar landmarks, the hills and curves and landscape that she had passed countless times in years past. She finally pulled in the driveway, and her parents came out to wrap their arms around her and squeeze her very hard. And this felt good to be held in those arms after so long. The family dog, who had been young and bouncy before she left, now barked at her, but then switched to a happy tail wag when he recognized who was here. She took her luggage into the room that had always been her bedroom, but she was surprised by how different the room looked. It had been painted a different color, and it had different furniture, but her parents had kept a bed in there for when she returned. As she settled in, she found more and more things had changed since she left. It felt weird and unexpected. She found her old favorite jacket in the closet and she put it on, but it didn't fit anymore and was too tight. There were new neighbors and the Main Street businesses had changed. And instead of feeling comfortable and at home in this town, she now felt new and awkward. She went back to the house and tried to play ball with the dog, but being much older than he used to be, he had no interest in getting up off his comfy spot on the couch. Well, the next day was Sunday, and she joined her parents in going to church. She had grown up going to this church, but as a kid, she had usually complained about it, because on Sundays, that was a day off from school, and she just wanted to sleep in and hang out and ride her bike and, well, things that did not involve talking about churchy things. Yes, she had had really fun times at church too and had made friends there, but it was always her parents who had made her go. Now, today, it was her own idea to go with them. When she walked into the building, she right away noticed how it smelled. It was a smell familiar all the way down deep into her bones. The smell itself wasn't necessarily good or bad. It was just so familiar. She sat in a pew and that felt familiar too, with her back against the wood set at that exact angle. She looked around and she was surrounded by strangers in this place where she used to know so many faces. And then she looked again a little more closely and she realized that she actually did know several people here, mixed among some new people. They just looked a little different than when she'd last been here. The service was a combination of old and new. They still lit the same chalice and said some of the same words. And there were also new words and songs and things like that. And it actually felt really good. After worship, she was able to talk to lots of people she had known from all her years at this church. And each person was a combination of same and different and old and new too. Suddenly, she realized that this church and this town and the people in her home, it all was a lot like the cells in our bodies. Always growing and changing, a combination of old and new, and adding and subtracting and coming and going. Church was the same in all the important ways. The building had been standing for almost 200 years. Now, everything about it over the years had gradually been replaced, including the people and the roof and the paint and the books, all of it. And that was necessary. But what was the same was that the people were still connected to each other. And in a way, even connected to all the first people who had been here 200 years ago, and to all the people who would be here 200 years in the future. The work they were doing still had the same purposes, just growing and shifting in an invisible line. It became clear to the young woman that the necessary and familiar parts of what the church was all about depended on the changes. just like how our bodies and ourselves need to keep changing to keep being who we are at our core. And this was true for the town, the home, her family, and even the dog, who wasn't so much into running anymore, but was still really skilled at loving and showed it with snuggles and bringing comfort to those returning from being away. Maybe we can keep this in mind as we start to go back to all kinds of things we've been away from. There will be things that change and grow and look unfamiliar at first and might feel awkward for a little while, including all of us. There will be the you-ness of you, the Jen-ness of me, and the South Church-ness of South Church. And beyond, these are always changing to become more and more of what we are at our core. It's like changing to become the same. I look forward to seeing your souls sparkling in your eyes as we sit in the pews that have always held our backs at that slightly reclined angle, beside new members of our community and old members of our community, under the same roof that will be made of all brand new healthy cells. I love you. Bye for now.
This is a time in our service when we have an opportunity to support the good programs of our church. During this month of April, we are sharing our plate with CASA of New Hampshire. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. This nonprofit trains and empowers volunteers who advocate in family and district courts for abused and neglected children, so they can thrive in safe, permanent homes. Please give what you can afford by following the prompts on the screen. Thank you.
For this precious day, for all gathered here, and those far away, for this time we share, thanks for this precious day, for this precious day.
It's a pleasure to be sitting here in the sanctuary to offer a prayer. We talked with Deb McDermott this morning, who is offering us some reflections of life in Ireland, of history, of traditions, and of what it's like to be in a country right now so very far away from us. And I thought that for prayer, I would like to begin by sharing a prayer of St. Patrick. May there always be work for your hands to do. May your purse always hold a coin or two. May the sun always shine on your window pane. May a rainbow be certain to follow each rain. May the hand of a friend always be near you. And may God fill your heart with gladness to cheer you. What meaning is found in that prayer for me is that may a hand always be near for you to hold, for you to have that touch of a person who cares deeply for you. And even though we are still continuing to meet virtually, we do know that you're there, and our hand is extended to you in love and care and affection. Our hands are extended to you in peace and in blessing. If you have any prayer needs, if you have any needs that you'd like to express, please take some time during the silent meditation to express your thoughts in the chat line, knowing that we will hold you, and that may you be at peace. May you know that you are loved, that you are cared for, and may peace surround you and your loved ones. May it be so. Amen.
Diodrit agus falcha. Hello and welcome to South Church on this Sunday morning in April, where I find myself in the small village of Corofin, County Clare, on the west coast of Ireland. Soon I will go for a walk where I will find flowers in profusion everywhere and trees in full leaf, where I will find a natural seasonal progression that began in mid-February when the first daffodils burst their paper skin. The lambs of Imbolc, February 1st or thereabouts, grow seemingly by the hour, and as they frolic next to Mama. The famous patchwork green of Ireland, a very real phenomenon, I assure you, is ever present. No New England shades of seasonal browns and grays for me this past winter. The ubiquitous stone walls were hidden behind a riot of ivy, moss, fern, and lichen. And those fields, those glorious fields of Irish grass and pasture land, remained richly fulsome. There is reason for this. All of nature, and certainly all of humankind, pay homage very nearly fealty to the weather in these parts. It is not only possible, but expected to speak in nearly human terms about its daily whims. Moody, surprising, grumpy, glorious, mercurial. It is all of that and more. In Maine, where I'm from, there is a saying, if you don't like the weather, wait a minute. This part of Western Ireland raises that to an art form. You need not wait a minute. A second or two will do. You begin with soft rain, which begets fleeting rainbow, begetting a clean ash gray sky, begetting glimpses of blue, begetting full sunshine, begetting rain again. And this before you even have time to catch your breath. One often feels at the whim of some ancient goddess or fairy here in County Clare, the weather being the most prominent, but hardly the only manifestation of its presence. These are the contours of my life now, and I declare myself pleased. After decades of living and working on the seacoast, after raising a strong and resilient daughter and launching her into the world, I hitched myself upon a dream and moved to Ireland last June. I came here for many reasons. As a child of Irish ancestors, as a pagan looking for a home and a childhood Catholic looking to make sense, as someone who wants to take Celtic music into her very pores, and as a would-be vagabond looking to unlock her latent wanderlust. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has done a pretty good job of hampering some of those dreams. Pubs are closed and live music is on hold. Travel has been curtailed. I would lie if I said I did not engage in some wringing of cosmic hands that hold a pandemic and a field of frolicking sheep simultaneously in their palms. Thank goodness for the frolicking sheep. Other dreams have started to come true, promising only deeper and more profound revelations to come. Last summer, I traveled to my ancestral parish of Eskra in Northern Ireland, where hailed generations of McDermotts. I learned that mine is a legacy tied to the land, that all-important Irish land that has been the lifeblood of this country for thousands and thousands of years. Land does not only mean land for farming, although it means just that. I recently read a book called 32 Words for Field, written by an Irish author who takes justifiable pride in knowing the intricacies and lost legacies of the Irish language. He tells us there are distinctly separate words for a field of corngrass, a field of cattle at night, a field for games or dancing, a field with fairy dwellings on it, and on, specific words tied to the field. That's how important it is to the Irish. Mine is a legacy too, tied to religion and religious persecution. and how small indignities can just punish a person. If you know the history of Ireland at all, you know that it is one of disenfranchisement. Northern Ireland in particular has retained its own peculiar brand of this, with its ascendant Protestants and descendant Catholicism. In this world of my ancestors, Catholic farmers were allotted only the upland acreage, rocky, less grassy, less hospitable than the rolling lowland fields and richer soils of the Protestants. Poverty was often endemic. It is no surprise then that discrimination and poor crops, no doubt fueled by the aftermath of the Great Hunger, were the likely causes that caused my great-grandfather to leave his native soil for America. It is instructive for me, a white American with all the privileges accorded to me, to remember that my Catholic forebears were not treated with dignity and worth. I descend from a minority clan, at least in that very specific geographic region of the world. And it is particularly important these times of all times to consider that. I think it would not take much for any of us to find burrowed roots of intolerance toward or propagated by our ancestors not that many generations ago. Yet the religious minority of the North remains very much the religious majority in the Republic of Ireland. This country, for good and often ill, hitched itself to Catholicism a very long time ago when the man Patrick settled here around 500 CE. Yet, as I have discovered little by little, and much to my very deep delight, the echoes of Ireland's past reverberate everywhere here. It is awesome to live in a country with a 5,000-year history, a place where ancient rituals are still a part of the fiber of everyday life, where good Catholics fervently believe it is best not to disturb a group of stones set in a circular pattern called a ring fort for fear of calling on the wrath of the Sidhe, the fairies who live there. In short, everywhere in Ireland, magic is afoot. And folks find nothing untoward in holding the belief in God and a belief in the Sidhe simultaneously, which is, I got to tell you, wicked cool. At its most elemental, this is syncretism, the blending of two spiritual beliefs into one seamless whole. That early polytheistic system comes down through the ages and is not lost to the mist of time, in large part due to the early Christian settling of Ireland, beginning with Patrick. His followers and their followers through the generations include literate, European-trained monks who dispersed throughout the country. 11th, 12th, 13th century monasteries are not quite as common as cattle around here, but nearly so. These monks wrote or transcribed sacred Catholic texts, absolutely, but they also were the Matthews and Lukes of a pagan land, committing to writing the oral traditions of the Irish people of the region. And so today exist virtually hundreds of texts that chronicle the religious and secular origins of this country, the gods, the goddesses, the battles, the invasions, the traditions, the alliances, the loves, the myths. It's really quite remarkable, the breadth of what has come down through time to us today. Yet because the chroniclers were Catholic clergy, it is widely understood that the text had a peculiarly Christian moral and biblical twist, not part of the original oral storytelling. Where one begins and the other leaves off is truly lost to the mists of time. And so syncretism began all that time ago, leaving today a blended spirituality. To me, nowhere is this concept more clearly manifested than in the holy wells that are scattered throughout the breadth and depth of Ireland, some 3,000 in all. They are as common as monasteries here in County Clare, or so I've been told. And I have personally visited about a dozen so far. I am very much a beginning student of Irish syncretism and have barely a thimbleful of knowledge that so many spend a lifetime acquiring. With that as a caveat, it is clear that wells were held sacred by the ancient Irish. In Irish literature and myth, wells and springs were seen as flowing from and conduits to the other world, the place where resided the gods and goddesses. Unlike other polytheistic and monotheistic traditions that looked above for the home of the deity or deities, think Mount Olympus or heaven, the Irish texts indicate the Irish looked below. The well waters, and indeed all waters in Ireland, were considered uniquely feminine. The wells themselves were guarded by maidens who were often depicted as offering food and water from the well to those who came to this sacred place. As Catholicism took hold, these wells that I imagine people had already visited for time out of mind were gradually subsumed into a defined saintly hierarchy. And so the holy wells of Saint Bridget that the Catholic supplicants visit today, for instance, are likely the same wells that pagan believers visited to pay homage to the goddess Brigid. I am very lucky that my life brings me to this time and this place to appreciate Irish syncretism, although I am but a pilgrim at the beginning of the journey. I have long felt myself to be a spiritual person, and I'm an amalgam of the religious experiences that form who I am now in my early elder years. I spent half my life railing against the Catholic Church, as only a person not fully mature can rail against the religion of their youth. I still have intellectual, political, and moral issues with the Vatican, but I have come to a broader understanding. I see the deep faith of family members and others I know, and I accept, I hope with grace and respect, that their spiritual path nourishes them. I come to this understanding in no small part because I am a Unitarian, syncretic in its own unique way. On any given Sunday, when we can go back to church, as we all know, any one of us could be sitting next to a Christian on one hand, an atheist on the other side, and a Buddhist next to her, all finding spiritual sustenance in the service. As one of our ministers once told me, and it's become a mantra, many paths, one mountain. It's difficult to be a Unitarian and carry religious grudges. Most importantly, I have long found the divine in the spirit of the babbling brook, a rustling wind, a fine harvest, the moon. Ireland's ancient past feels exactly like home to me. I'm not sure this has been a very profound sermon, and for that, my apologies. It does have kind of a postcard from Ireland quality about it, for sure. But I've tried to give you a sense of my life across the pond. Hopefully, when I'm back in August, the church will be open and I can greet you in person, telling you about the great music I just heard at a pub or the recent trip I took to Europe. But for now, as they say in Ireland, slán go fóill. Goodbye for now. Until we meet again. May it be so, and blessed be.
Walking all the day near tall towers where falcons build their nests. Silver winged they fly, they know the call of freedom in their breasts. So talking all the day with true friends who try to make you stay, telling jokes and news, singing songs to pass the night away. Stood on Dingle Beach and cast in wild foam, found Atlantic west, living on your western shore, saw summer sunsets, asked for more. I stood by your Atlantic sea and sang this song for Ireland, singing all the day in old pubs where fiddlers love to play. Someone touched the bow, he played a reel, it seemed so fine and gay. Watch the Galway salmon run like silver dancing, darting in the sun, living on your western shore, saw summer sunsets, asked for more. I stood by your Atlantic sea and sang a song for Ireland, dreaming in the night. I saw land where no I sang this song for Ireland. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, a country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
The Irish are known for their blessings, so here is one I'll leave you with today. May love and laughter light your days and warm your heart and home. May good and faithful friends be yours wherever you may roam. May peace and plenty bless your world with joy that long endures. May all life's passing seasons bring the best to you and yours.